All right, welcome to another episode of Persuasion by the Pint. I'm Jonathan Taylor, along with
Sean McCool.
And happy holidays to everyone out there listening to us. It's been a couple of weeks, Sean, so we might be a little rusty. I know we're just kind of getting back into the swing of things. So
yeah.
So how's your holiday, by the way? Good.
It was good.
Yeah.
It was, in kind of fitting with the podcast here, got this cool little thing from for Christmas, bottlekeeper.com.
Oh, nice.
And it looks like a water bottle.
It looks like just a regular water bottle.
Right. But then when you open it, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're not, you should be. The bottom comes off. It's got a neoprene lining, and then you can stick a bottle in here, seal it back up,
right?
Take off the top and drink. Have your bottle chilled.
That's so cool.
For up to 8 hours, like you'd ever need that.
Right.
But, you could have it chilled. And then
no way a beer would last.
No. Yeah.
An hour.
And it's got a bottle opener in the top as well.
That's really cool.
You can even screw the top back on if you need to, if you're on the run or whatever. But yeah, it's kind of a cool little toy. And
what's the company again? What did you say?
Bottlekeeper.com.
Bottlekeeper.com. Okay.
Yeah, pretty cool.
That is awesome.
Cool marketing too. They have some neat commercials and kind of the Dollar Shave Club approach and humor type thing. So yeah, it's a cool little toy. And back at it. Mm-hmm. And
so you're back to having a beverage now after your lengthy fast.
After a lengthy fast. So that was all good. You can go check out episode 12 for kind of more on that. But yeah, it came out. Everything turned out good. I'm still alive and completed all 21 days water only fast. And
awesome.
Have gotten back into kind of normal life again after that and enjoying beverages. In fact, we're enjoying. I saw this when I was at Total Wine and Beverage.
Okay,
and it's Shiner S'mores. So if you like Shiner Bock, this is nothing like that. It's made by the same people.
You like s'mores, you.
But it's
a good camping
chocolate
beer.
And marshmallow. Yeah, sounds crazy. Like the Bud Light Night would not be happy with this. This would be all wrong for him. But it's not bad. It's another one of those that you kind of have to let air, I think, first, and then it kind of releases the flavors. But like out of the bottle, it's not one that you would drink out of the bottle.
Yeah. So first impressions. I've already had a sip.
It definitely gets more of a portery taste as it sits. It gets a little richer, a little more porter.
It is very rich.
Yeah. So,
but I can definitely taste the hint of marshmallow and chocolate.
Yeah, definitely.
It hits you.
But when I first tried it about 10 minutes ago, it didn't really sit right, but now it's starting to get that air to it. I like it. Feels pretty
I like a sweet, we'll have a couple. I've got the over the holidays, the Sam Adams holiday pack, and it's got an assortment, and one of those was their chocolate porter is one of my favorites.
Oh, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah,
so,
we'll have that on the next episode.
Yes.
All right,
yes.
So drink up.
Yep. So very good. Shiner S'more. Is this a seasonal or just a...
I would think so. Brewed for happy campers.
Well.
Toasting, pun, 110 years of Shiner.
So today, on today's episode, we're not just going to be talking about s'mores and beer. We're going to be talking about one of the books that we had discussed featuring, which is Breakthrough Advertising. You've got your copy.
I do.
Sean, this is a book, and I remember years ago, you've been a copywriter, and I remember years back you had mentioned this book, and I actually bought this book. You may not remember, but I bought it off of your recommendation probably 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And I had the time. I actually went through it the first time, and wow, it's one of these books you don't just read through it once.
No.
And we've mentioned there's a lot of books like this, but this is one of those books where you kind of keep on hand and you mark a lot of pages.
Come back to it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like fundamentals of marketing, not just copywriting. Eugene Schwartz, the author, was one of the best copywriters throughout the 70s, 50s, 60s, 70s. He had one of the largest private art collections in New York,
right?
Modern art collections, and the guy just His promotion really launched Boardroom Reports, which in its heyday was in the 80s. I think was probably one of the, if not the most successful direct response company in the world. We're talking $100 million back when everything had to be done by direct mail, pre-internet.
Right.
This book is kind of the summary of all the experience that Eugene Schwartz had, and he's kind of packaged it all up. And it's really a textbook for marketing.
Right.
Like, you'll probably never find this in a college marketing course, but it should be.
It should be.
It should be its own semester. And really, you could make a degree out of this book, and you would know more than most ad agency execs.
Yeah.
If you really got what he's saying here. You could fix any campaign that's not working.
Yeah.
And not just from a copy standpoint. This is like a total persuasion, influence, getting people from where they are to buying your product. This is that kind of book. So yeah, there is a lot of nuance and a lot of stuff to unpack, and we're just going to hit the highlights.
In my opinion, anybody that wanted to get started in copywriting, I would recommend this book and How to Write a Good Advertisement.
Charles Schwab.
Yes.
Yeah.
Victor
Schwab.
Schwab. And those two books would be a good starting. I think the basics are in that book, but this would be the next follow-up book that I would say go here.
Yeah, the third book I would recommend that is not a marketing or a copywriter book would be On Writing by Stephen King.
Yeah. That's excellent.
Just for the discipline of writing. And and how to write cleanly. That's a powerful book for anybody that writes, whether it's white papers, reports. I mean, On Writing by Stephen King is just really good book. And
I listen to that on audio, and it's incredible. And he actually reads it on audio. But it's a great example of how to write without all the fluff.
Right. And he's done all right for himself, Stephen King.
You think so? Had a few movies, maybe, I think. I don't know. I can't remember.
All right, so we're going to dive into, I think we're going to start at the beginning. And we may go quite a few episodes on this and kind of camp out here, I think.
Yeah.
This is just solid gold. And again, it may seem like we're covering like everything in the book, and we're still just hitting the top, because he gives a lot of headline examples that we won't read and go into and stuff like that. And some of the examples are old because the book was written quite a while ago, but the principles are timeless, and that's why we're coming back to it. So,
one of the things that stands out to me in the first chapter, and I think it's where a lot of people who, when they first get their start in copywriting, they make the mistake of thinking their copy is what persuades.
Right.
Well, in essence, it does, but the copy doesn't create desire.
Yes.
The desire has to already be within the individual. You can't create desire within somebody that doesn't have a desire. So, you can't, write great copy for a product that someone has no interest in and get them to have interest. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. I think that's where a lot of sales trainers and old school sales managers, they're like, oh, you gotta fire them up. You gotta, increase the desire. And that's not how it works.
How to sell anything to anyone. Yeah, exactly. I mean,
it's tapping into the desire that already exists.
Right.
And that's where he starts, because if you miss that and you're trying to manufacture this desire, whether it be for a car, whether it be for a book, a service, you're going to be it's going to be hard.
Absolutely.
If not impossible.
Yeah.
So you might get lucky and do it on accident, but you won't be able to repeat the process.
Right.
So what he lays out here in chapter 1 is that you must tap into the desires that already exist in the hearts of millions of people. So you're hitting the core desires, and then you've got to link those desires to your product.
Yeah.
And that's the big, channel that desire, channel that, and direct it towards your product or your service.
Yep.
So how do we do that? So what else do you have on chapter 1? Because chapter 1 is pretty quick and short.
Yeah.
But,
I kind of highlighted the creating the mass desire. How is mass desire created? And then I had permanent forces, things that I guess don't go away, forces that change in permanent forces. So what are examples of permanent forces within people's desire? Those are things that people, they never change. They're timeless. People's desire to lose weight.
Yep.
You're always going to have that.
Right.
People's desire to, look distinguished in a certain way. There's always going to be those hidden forces that are always going to. Humanity doesn't change in that regard, but there are things that do change. Technology changes, so we're not always when we're looking at mass desire, we have to look. Okay, what is our market? What is that going to be, and how are we going to tap into it? But is this something that some things are like you ride the wave? This as a copywriter, you get in on a hot item at the time, and you jump on it and you ride the wave, but that it's not going to always be there. But then there's other things that you tap into, that you get into, like people desire to succeed. Obviously, that's always going to be around.
Yep.
People's desire to get ahead, to get wealthy, to get financially free. Those things are completely timeless. So you have to understand. I think you have to understand what your market is, and understand that sometimes it doesn't last forever.
Yeah, one of the sayings that I remember is you can never be too rich, too thin, or too good looking.
Yeah.
Like those are the kind of the big three markets that drive a lot of our economy, in one way or another. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's kind of the permanent force. And then, like you said, the force of change, the forces of change is another that, but underneath that, there's the permanent force. Mm-hmm. So for instance, people may have wanted in the late 1800s, early 1900s, people may have wanted a buggy that had a softer ride, right? So the nitroglycerin didn't blow up on the way or whatever, so they got leaf springs in the back, But then all of a sudden the Model T comes around, and now people want that.
Of course.
But the core desire to get from point A to point B never with changed. Less work was still the same.
Yeah.
And that's still the same to today, Mm-hmm. Even Uber, as a service-based transportation is still about getting from point A to point B, mm-hmm. but you can now check your email while you're going. You don't have to have the car maintenance. So it keeps evolving with technology and with opportunities. So those are the permanent force. There's a line that I have highlighted in here that I've had highlighted for years that I think is important, and that is no single advertiser can afford to educate the American public.
Right.
Like if you're trying to educate them on why they should have something, it's a losing battle. Yeah. That's a very expensive way to go. And that's why you want to channel into
it takes time. And if you do, mm-hmm. it's a massive undertaking and expense that you've got to educate. Then you've got to continually seed that education, and before you even create the desire to take action.
Yeah, let the big corporations play that game.
Yeah.
And us smaller guys, entrepreneurs,
absolutely,
we'll tap into the desire, and as they educate, once they get it done, then we'll jump on that as well. So so permanent forces, forces of change. We talked a little bit about that. Like he gives a good example here in cars, like the horsepower appeal of the 50s, like the muscle cars mm-hmm. and all that stuff. And then the 70s comes along, and there's an oil embargo, and now it's all about energy efficiency.
Absolutely,
and
things change.
You've got to sell a completely different,
although there is niche markets where you can tap into that horsepower, but it's not
right.
It's not.
It wasn't
mass
like a big
type
desire, and that's a lot of that's come back, and because as gas prices drop.
Mm-hmm.
People
mm-hmm.
are willing to buy bigger cars, faster cars, spend more on gas. Dodge lately has done a real good job of being
absolutely.
The brotherhood of muscle and mm-hmm. tapping into that desire that never went away since the 50s.
Right.
And that's a good example of tapping into a very specific desire that is pent up in the market.
Sure.
That a lot of people aren't serving. You got the economy of the, Honda goes after the economical, long-lasting
bingo
crowd, and the desire for frugality and to be, and even that's a form of wanting to be respected in a certain way.
Right.
Right. The Dave Ramsey crowd. Right. It's cool to be frugal, all that stuff. Then you've got the Porsche, Lambo, Ferrari crowd. Right. It's cool to just spend money.
Yep, absolutely. So, yeah, and I mean, they don't care what it costs. To them, it's a status symbol. So
right. Yeah. So what else do you have in there? I've got some stuff highlighted, but what do you got next?
I had doing an analysis of your product. One of the things I find interesting is this is just on a side note, but every now and then I'll listen to some old time radio ads. If you listen to them back from the 60s.
Yeah.
And some of them you can spot some very poor ones and then some that are actually really good. But a lot of them are still, you kind of chuckle because you listen to them and you see some of the descriptions of the upholstery and all this stuff. You're thinking, that today those seem cheesy because a lot of their focus in their ad copy is focused on the things like the features. The features instead of the benefits of that vehicle. What it's going to mean to them in terms of whether it's, like you said, fuel efficient, whether if it's a status symbol, what people are going to think of you when you drive this luxurious vehicle. No, but they're talking about the windows and the roll up windows, that are easy to roll, or the vinyl or the leather, or, all of those things, those tangible things that you think, that's not to us, as we know in copywriting, that's not, you want to focus on the, not the features, but the benefits. So,
yeah, we'll talk more about why that changes in the next episode.
Yep.
Just to tease the next episode a little bit, the market goes through a couple different stages, and you have to know where the market is. And back in the 60s, 70s, cars,
that was new. Yeah.
Not everybody had cars.
Right.
Now everybody has a car.
Exactly.
Your teenager has a car with power windows now. It's like, so that's not a big deal anymore. So you have to go to something that gets into, we've talked about in the past, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? You got to kind of work up the aspirational ladder there.
Yeah.
With even stuff as, practical or impractical, depending on your point of view as a car and basic transportation.
Yeah.
So one thing I had in here, and we'll be unpacking this as we go through, it says every mass desire. When he talks about mass desire, he's like, what are those big desires that the whole public kind of shares? It says he has 3 vital dimensions. The first is urgency, intensity, and degree of demand to be satisfied. Like how much do people want it? And the example he gave is constant arthritic pains compared to minor headache. There's a lot more demand, intensity of demand to get rid of arthritic pain than there's a minor headache, but there's probably more people that have a minor headache.
Exactly.
So you got to figure out where you are in that spectrum. The second dimension is staying power, degree of repetition, or we might say consumability, like how often you can consume it.
Right.
So the example there that he gave is raw hunger compared to a craving for gourmet food.
Yeah.
Right. So raw hunger, once they're fed, it's off the table, it's taken care of.
Sure.
Right. Where if it's somebody has this desire for gourmet foods, and you look, now we have entire channels dedicated to just cooking.
Yeah.
That probably he couldn't even have dreamed of when he wrote the book, but that we have entire channels dedicated to.
Right.
I mean, I must have watched over the holidays,
several,
like dozens of a baker's dozen of cookie challenges, like Christmas cookie challenges and everything else. It was like mesmerizing to watch.
Coming off a fast, man. That's
it was like, so is your product and service a consumable that's going to be carries out along, or is it going to be a one and done satisfaction? Like you can fix one big problem in their life. And best cases, I think, to be able to do both.
Yeah.
Like to solve one big hairy problem and then move people towards a solution that maintains the solving of that problem, over the long term. And then the third thing he talks about is, the number of people who share this desire. Just how big is the market? So, like the multivitamin market, like how many people want just daily multivitamin compared to how many people want a testosterone supplement? Like how big are those different markets? So that, and we'll be breaking those apart in the next couple of episodes.
Yeah, it's interesting. And we'll touch on this on some of the upcoming chapters in the next episode. But as consumers, or as consumers get more savvy, today it's the consumer awareness. People become more educated. Things change, factors change, and so you really have to tap in and understand more about what your prospect desires more than anything nowadays. It's so important because anybody can get on Google today. So, and it's so easy. So it's got to go beyond just what your product does, and whether you're first. We'll talk about being first to the market too, which is also can be a good thing, but it can also be a detriment sometimes. But we'll kind of hint, and that'll be our teaser for the next one. Unless you got any wrap up thoughts?
Yeah. So here's I've got two highlighted things here for the wrap up thought, and that is, he says that it's the performance of your product satisfying the mass desire of your market that provides the selling power of your ad. So when you can get that intersection correct,
right?
The actual performance of what your product actually does for people, not what you hope it does or think it might do, but what it actually does, the results that it actually delivers. When you cross that with that core desire that the market has, then your ad advertisement, whatever it is, whether it's video, whether it's a blog post or podcast, whatever it is, it will work.
Yeah.
But you've got to get that intersection right, and that's what we're going to be talking about on the future episodes. The other thing is, as we unpack this whole thing, he's basically teaching you how to write an ad from top to bottom. And when this book was written, it was all about print ads, direct mail. But the same thing applies with a product description. If you've got an Amazon store and you've got a product description link, paragraph that's 150, 250 words, you can do the same thing in that space. You can do the same thing in a cold call on a sales call. You can do, if you have an appointment with somebody for sales, you can do the same structure.
Right.
It just may not look like a printed letter, but it's the same structure. And here's what he says about that. If your first thought holds him, he will read the second. If the second holds him, he will read the third. And if the third thought holds him, he will probably read through your ad.
Yeah.
So if we can get people 3 levels deep into your presentation, you've got a good shot at persuading them and influencing them to do business with you over all the other options, including doing nothing at all.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that applies. We talk about this, like you said, in copy, but getting that 3 levels deep can apply in a sales presentation.
Yep.
If you're giving a PowerPoint to convince a board or a company that you're trying to close on a big deal that you're doing. All of this, persuasion can be, sales copy can be taken and used in so many different areas, like you said, on sales calls. But just doing any kind of presentation, people forget about this and they end up with very bland presentations. They end up with really lame sales calls with no particular objection or purpose of their phone call other than just to how you doing, have an objection or have a purpose that you can get across and know what you're going to say in terms of creating that desire or eliciting the desire for your product within that conversation.
Yeah, that first sentence out of your mouth, that first sentence on your landing page, that first sentence is critical. And we're going to talk about how do you know what type of sentence that should be when we go into the next episode. So I think that's probably a good place
to lead.
Wrap right there and join us on, was that episode 16?
Episode 16. Thanks for listening, guys. Again, persuasionbythepint.com. You can do a quick search. And if you're not already subscribed to the podcast, You can do a quick search and find us on any of the podcast platforms that you typically might listen to. But thanks again for listening. Till next time.
See you.